Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today we are talking about walking in someone else's shoes. You can see full show notes at doseoffeelgood.my.canva.site. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to A Dose of Feel Good. And today's topic is something I know y'all have heard, walking in somebody else's shoes. But I think with how things have been going lately in the world, I think it's a really good reminder of that we're selfish humans, right? That it's sometimes hard when we get stuck in the day-to-day of everything that we feel like is wrong in our lives. And sometimes getting into this mindset of who has it worse, or if someone does have it worse, we don't really recognize or have that empathy that connects us as humans. And so I think this is just really helpful for where we all are currently. And as we approach the holidays, people tend to feel more generous during that time. And I think it should be longer than just the holiday season, but we're going to capitalize on that momentum. I also wanted to take a moment. I'm sure y'all have heard of the Dallas Cowboys football player who ended his life. And I think it ties into our topic here today. And again, this is a phrase I feel like we've all heard, that we never really know what somebody is going through, even those that we feel like have it all together. And just taking a pause sometimes and understanding that there are hurting people, even people who look like they have it all together, that have this smile on their face. I think there's many people we can remember that we have lost to depression that we could do something more for. So I just wanted to take that second of, if you are maybe in that space here today, knowing that you're not alone. And I hope as we continue on with the episode today that you're reminded of that and validated a little bit. But I think this topic, walking in somebody else's shoes, really boils down to that empathy notion. But I think when we take a step back, we recognize that we live in a world that feels like it's in constant chaos. Obviously, where we are now, we have access to information at our fingertips all of the time. But I think because of that, sometimes our response is that we're encouraged to put people against each other rather than recognizing our humanity, that we really are all humans. And some of us have been dealt a bad hand. Some of us have just things that we're navigating. But at the end of the day, we are all humans. And I think recognizing that rather than kind of going at each other all the time can be really helpful. I think this also stems from this competitive nature of who has it better or who has it worse. I know myself, I'm competitive to a fault. That's just my personality. But I never want to compete with like who has it better or worse, because we really don't know all of the things that people might be going through that they aren't putting to the surface. I think oftentimes when we think of the topic walking in someone else's shoes, at least where my mind goes, is those that might be houseless or living on the streets, or, those types of things that have just been dealt a really crappy hand. But I think sometimes I have to recognize in myself that we are all one choice or one decision away from being in those same shoes. And I think we don't recognize how big that is. And it's true. I think of that in terms of like, my house could burn down. There was a house down the street that had this massive fire a couple of years ago, and being able to just see the flames at their house while I'm in mine, I was like, that could be us. Like, there's nothing that says it can't be. Or, those that have or are in a motor vehicle accident, or, just any of those kind of freak things that happen. we're all one step away from being at our lowest. But I think also recognizing we're also one step away from being and reaching all of our dreams, right? And so it's this paradigm of, yes, we're living in this moment, but that just because where I'm at now doesn't make me any better or worse than someone who unfortunately is houseless. There's just so much to that. And again, at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all in that same space. I think also recognizing, because I think sometimes when we're humans, we're judgmental. That's just how we are. But being able to recognize maybe where those biases come from, and also recognizing that we aren't what happens to us, but also at the same time, it does impact us. We would be so naive to think that, this thing has happened to me and has gotten me to this point, whether that's good or bad. But it doesn't just happen to us. It does impact us deep down. And I think when we realize that, we can kind of start to understand that people have these complex stories that make them who they are and that have gotten to them to the point of where they are at. And I think we just assume that people have been taught all of these life lessons of how to navigate the stress or the chaos or whatever that looks like. But no one sometimes has taught us, how do we do that? How do we do life? What does that even mean? And so I think when we think of that, right, like I've heard so many times of like, oh, if they just do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay, X, Y, Z might have worked for you, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for the next person in the next situation. And a lot of the time we haven't even been taught how to navigate that. I think maybe practically there are things we can do, but then you think of like that internal struggle that we all have. No one teaches you how to navigate those things. And so it can sometimes bury us even in this deeper hole because we don't have those skills. And then topple on top of that, all of the things we've experienced and that impact us. And it's just this compounding web. And so when we approach people from curiosity and wanting to understand and learn from their story and what they bring to the table, rather than from judgment, we really do start to open those doors more. I think from the story today, obviously I mentioned earlier that I lost my mom at 19. I haven't gone super in depth from that story, but after my mom passed, I don't think I realized how bad of a financial situation that we were in. So we had found out probably within a week after that our house was going into bankruptcy. And I think we had like 2 weeks to pack up our entire house. We had nowhere to go. I was in college, so I had a dorm room. I had my younger sister trying to find a place for her to go to. But effectively, we were houseless in those 3 weeks, also with all of the grief that we were experiencing. And so I think it happens that fast. Like, we lived in a fairly nice house, and never in a million years would I have been like, oh, I'm going to be houseless. And I kind of chalked it up of like, oh, I'll just couch surf. And to me, when I was young, I was like, that doesn't mean I'm houseless. But I was. I was an RA, so I was working for basically my housing. So I wasn't getting paid anything on top of that. I was going to school full time. So now looking back, I'm like, that I was in a really rough place. Like, if I had to leave campus that summer and just kind of be off on my own for whatever reason, I would have had nowhere to go in effect, right? Like, I had plenty of people that offered their spaces. So it wasn't like technically had nowhere to go, but really, like, I didn't have a house that was my own. And then shortly after that, I got into a really bad car accident. My car was totaled. So I had no house. I had no car, no mode of transportation. And I lived 45 minutes away from what was my hometown. That's where my school was. So very quickly, this all happened probably within a year. I went from having all of these things and knowing what life looked like to effectively none of that. I think also looking back now, I can say like none of those things I asked for, right? There was nothing that I did that had or affected those things from impacting me. So another way I think to look at it is that it felt like life just kept kicking me in the face, right? Like I could not control those things. They were happening to me, but it was truly my reality. And I think also then on the inside, right? That's outwardly what people can see. But then I think moving forward, I've navigated it. I navigated it fairly well. Kudos to me, giving ourselves a pat on the back. But I think then moving into my professional career, I have, and I still do have this, bright personality. I'm positive, probably to a fault. But I think then sometimes those are the people that people love to target. Just to see like, ooh, can I push them, right? Or if I push them, it's not really going to impact them because, they are bright and sparkly. And I'm like, I think back now, just knowing that inside I was questioning my worth. I felt a little bit like I was going crazy. And because I had all of these things in my prior life that truly did impact me, I think sometimes those words or that pushing, those toxic environments just compound everything you're feeling inside. And so taking a step sometime and really asking for help so that it doesn't get to a point where I know for me, like I would cry to my office. I would work all day and have this bright, yep, I have it all figured out. And then as soon as I got to my car, I'd cry again. And that again was the reality that like inside I was just so broken. But I also was in an environment where people weren't really seeing things from my perspective or understanding or asking questions of maybe what was going on. And I've learned I never want someone to be in that space. And so just again, approaching life from that curiosity, being empathetic, it teaches us that we all have things to learn from each other's human experience, whether they're in a really great spot or maybe are really struggling. But when we approach life, again, asking those questions and learning from each other, we can grow and be better. And I think it reminds us when we take that understanding from someone else that might be struggling, it's that validation, especially again, for myself, I hide it really well, but it's that validation that like, I'm not alone in it, that we've all get to those spots, that are hard. And when we're in those spots, it can feel like we're super alone. So when we ask people their story, their questions about what got them to where they are, then it makes us feel like a little less crazy, honestly, with what we're trying to navigate in the world. And it's really this balance of supporting each other through our stories, through our experiences, but also that accountability, right? It's not ever saying that, oh, I'm not going to push you to be better or really give you that honest feedback to grow, but it's through that empowerment, right? Like I see something in you and I'm going to call attention to that and teach you to be better, because sometimes we just haven't had those skills and we can learn those from each other. I think then on that note, it reminds us that we all have gifts to give this world. And some of us have been told that, or made to believe that we don't have a gift, that we're just here existing. And that's just not the reality. But I think when we get in that headspace or have been told over and over that we don't have anything to offer, sometimes it gets us in this self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if no one else believes I can do it, why should I? And I really want to encourage you today to take that as a little bit of, no, I'm going to prove you wrong mentality, because you do have gifts. And I think one thing we can all do when we're walking in somebody else's shoes is help other people recognize their gifts. And I think that is just super beautiful. So recognizing what gifts that you have and what would happen if everyone realized that they have this gift to give to the world and that they, poured their heart and soul into it and put attention and all of those things, that we would have so much beauty being offered to the world. And I think that's really helpful to know and remember. So, how do you actually walk in somebody else's shoes? What does that actually mean in practice? So first, I think it's important, especially for those who have navigated some hard things or, maybe hadn't been told that they have their gift, whatever that looks like. So first things first, it's coming with that little bit of diva mentality, but don't let those haters win. Don't let the world get in and tell you that you are not enough, because you do have a gift. You have a unique gift that only you can offer. So being a little spicy in your head and saying like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. I think then it's also identifying what is your gift, doing some hard work sometimes into what that looks like. But then also, again, recognizing those gifts in others and telling them. That's the big piece. Like, I think we admire others and sometimes the strength that they have or pieces like that, but we never tell them. So I encourage you, recognize other gifts, because you might be the first person that has done that. And then the last thing, especially when we think of, as humans, we're judgmental, we have biases, approach people with curiosity, ask questions. There are people in the world that I'm like, I just do not understand how you can think that way or anything like that, but give yourself that time of day. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.